and today we're making fluffy Japanese pancakes. Pancakes are usually eaten for breakfast and they're very simple to make, but sometimes it could be a bit of a rush to actually prepare the batter, cook it, and then eat it in the morning. So these Japanese pancakes are great because you can prepare the batter ahead of time. They're very simple to make, and all you have to do in the morning is just beat up a few eggs and then get it right in the pan. These are also very delicious, and they are really thick and fluffy as well. These pancakes are different from regular pancakes because instead of using baking powder to give it volume, we're going to be using yeast to make it fluffier. So let's get started. For the ingredients you will need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, half a cup of cornstarch, 1.5 cups of milk, a pinch of salt, 3 tablespoons of white sugar, 1 teaspoon of instant yeast, 2 eggs, half a teaspoon of baking soda, 2 tablespoons of butter melted, some extra oil for grease, and fresh strawberries and blueberries for garnish. Starting off in a bowl, you want to use a bowl with a lid if you can because we're going to be letting this rise for about half an hour, and you could also chill this in the fridge overnight, so it will be more convenient to use a bowl with a lid instead of using plastic wrap over and over again. So in this bowl, we're going to add in 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Then we're going to add in 1/4 cup of cornstarch, and this is going to make the pancakes a lot softer and fluffier, so you don't want to substitute this with more all-purpose flour. We're going to add that in as well. Then we're going to be adding in the sugar. So we have 3 tablespoons of sugar in total, but we're only going to be adding in 1 tablespoon of sugar into the actual batter. We're going to be adding the rest of the sugar into the eggs later on. So I'm just going to measure out 1 tablespoon of white granulated sugar. Then we'll add in the yeast. And finally the salt, and you don't want direct contact of the salt and the yeast, so lay it on the opposite side of the bowl. Once all the dry ingredients are in the bowl, we're going to mix this all together before we add in the milk. We're going to add in 1.5 cups of milk. You could use whole milk or skim milk, it does not really matter. Now we're just going to start mixing the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients together. When you're mixing the pancake batter, it does not matter what type of pancake you're making. You always want to make sure you do not over-beat the batter. So it does not matter if you still have some lumps of flour inside of this. As long as the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients are mixed together, you're good to go. I have a lid here. You could also use plastic wrap if you don't have a lid for your bowl. Now we're going to set this at room temperature for about 30 minutes on the kitchen counter for the yeast to activate and make the batter nice and bubbly. But if you're making this ahead of time and planning to cook it off the next morning, you can place it onto the kitchen counter at room temperature for about 30 minutes until the yeast is activated, and then place it into the fridge for it to chill overnight to cook it off the next morning. It really depends on what situation you're in and how much time you have. So I'm just going to let it sit for 30 minutes until the batter is nice and bubbly. While we're waiting for the yeast to activate, you can start preparing your ring mold. So I have one that I bought in a store. It is about 1.5 centimeters in height and about 9.5 centimeters in diameter. So if you don't have one of these, you could also make it yourself with some aluminum foil. You could also change the height of that and the diameter of it if you make it yourself. And I have ripped off a piece of aluminum foil, and you want it to be quite wide in width because it would be stabler after you make the actual ring mold. So mine is about 15 centimeters in width and about 30 centimeters in length. So now to make the actual ring mold, we're going to fold it in half again, and a half one last time. Now we're going to fold this into a ring, and we're going to finish off, and there's your own ring mold. Now you can see the ring mold that I just made is about the exact same size as a ring mold you could buy in a store. But this step is kind of optional because you don't have to make pancakes in an actual ring mold. You could just scoop it into the pan like a regular pancake. But if you want to make it really fluffy, you want to have a certain amount of height so you can actually see how fluffy it is. So I usually use a ring mold to make my Japanese pancakes, but if you don't want to go through all this trouble, you could just skip the ring mold. My yeast has activated inside the batter, so as you can see, this has grew in size, and it's really bubbly on top and really foamy. We're going to use a spatula to get rid of some of that air. You can see there's lots of air bubbles in there. This is what the yeast is for. For the eggs, I have 2 eggs today, so I'm going to be using all of the pancake batter, which means I'm going to make a lot of pancakes. But if you don't want to make that much pancakes at once, you could just use 1 egg and use half of the batter and store the rest in the fridge. You could keep this batter in the fridge for up to 2 days, so you can really make this ahead of time. I'm just going to separate these eggs. Before we beat the meringue, we're going to add the baking soda into the pancake batter. Now again, if you're using only half of the pancake batter, you only need 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Again, I'm doing all of this, so I'm using half a teaspoon of baking soda. I'm just going to add this in and mix it through. Once the baking soda is mixed through, we're going to add in 2 tablespoons of melted butter and both of the egg yolks. And again, just mix that through until everything is combined. You don't want to overmix this. And we're going to start beating the egg whites. Once it becomes foamy like this, I'm going to add in half of the granulated sugar and beat it until it's at stiff peaks. I'm going to add in the rest of the sugar. Once the egg white is at stiff peaks, we are ready to start folding it into the pancake batter. And until if it's at stiff peaks, all you need to do is flip the bowl over, and if nothing falls out, it is ready. I'm going to add about 1/3 of the egg whites into the pancake batter to lighten it up. Now you don't need to be too careful here. It doesn't really matter if this egg white is being deflated. This is just to lighten up the batter so it's easier to mix into the rest of the egg whites. The egg whites are mixed in. Now I'm going to add in the rest. Now I'm going to gently fold this egg white into the mixture. Try not to deflate it too much. So just go under, through the middle, and over. You don't want to deflate this too much, so don't just stir in a circle. Once there are no more huge lumps of the egg white left in the pancake batter, we could get this onto the pan. Before we start, we're going to brush the ring mold with a little bit of oil so it does not stick to the pancakes later on when we're cooking it. And you want to do the same if you made your own ring mold. You will be needing an ice cream scoop to portion out the batter. This holds about 1/4 cup of the actual batter. So if you don't have an ice cream scoop, you could just use 1/4 cup to measure it out. Starting off, we're going to turn it on to medium heat. The pan is now hot. I'm going to place both rings onto the pan, and you want to leave quite a bit of space between each one to make it easier to flip. Now I'm going to take my ice cream scoop and scoop out some of the batter. It takes about 1-2 minutes for each pancake to cook, so you need to have enough patience for it to form a lot of bubbles and for the edges to cook. You do not want to touch it as soon as you place the batter into the ring molds, so just let it cook on its own. Once there are lots of bubbles on top and the edges are cooked, slip the spatula under the pancake, lift up the ring mold, and flip it over. The other side is nicely cooked, so I'm just going to take it off the pan. That's how you make fluffy Japanese pancakes. These are very simple to make. I made 19 in total, but don't bother counting. I ate a few during the process. So when you're making it, you want to make sure you're using medium heat. You don't want the pan to be too cool because the pancakes won't cook and it won't rise up as much. But you don't want it to be too hot either because the pancakes will cook too fast and it might burn. These are great if you're planning to make it in the morning. You don't have to prepare the batter. You can make this ahead of time and it can store in the fridge for up to 2 days. When you're eating the pancakes, obviously you want to match it up with some fruit. So I have some blueberries and some strawberries here. And for today, to switch things up a little bit, I'm going to be using chocolate syrup instead of maple syrup to top off these pancakes. These Japanese pancakes are really fluffy, they're really soft, and they obviously taste very delicious. So I hope you can try this out. It's very convenient if you're trying to make this in the morning, and it's very simple to make as well. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye!